And to be agile enough, I think there are many people in this room who are leading those kind of processes where we really need to fast up and make sure these things are happening. And now I'm inviting 6 of them to be our panel for next half an hour. So very warm welcome Gunilla Blomquist, Mark Hidson, Harri Hakaste, Ulf Jaeckel, Gabriele Kull, and Martine Rohn. And these are the people who are part of these 10 years framework programs, which are 6 programs that take exactly these questions up on very practical level. In these 6 areas where the sustainable consumption and production should be taken into account. And now we will have a quite fast jump into 6 perspectives to this topic. And we will start with Gunilla Blomquist, who comes from the Swedish Ministry for the Environment and Energy, and who leads the program of lifestyles and education. So she's actually the one who is responsible of helping us to do all these tricks or something like that. Can you share us a little bit? What are you doing in that program, and compared to what are the challenges that Kitty posed to us? How is this 10-year framework program of education and lifestyles answering to those questions? Gunilla.
Thank you. Is this on?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm happy to be here and see so many people joining this session. I think we can agree that we need to change our consumption patterns. Sustainable consumption is a crucial and large part of the circular economy. And if you look at the actual circle of the circular economy, we know that it starts with the production of natural resources, continued with the production of products. But these products are supposed to be possible to repair, to upgrade, to reuse, recycle, and be remade into new products. And the following consumption part is following the production part, and the consumption part is really needed to have some enabling structures in order to make the consumers, the individuals, households, but also public authorities and businesses to make the right things. So these enabling structures, it can be supportive infrastructure, it can be economic incentives, information, not at least education, new business models, and other tools. But without the sustainable consumption part, we'll have no green economy, and vice versa, I would say. The program on sustainable lifestyles and education is co-led by Sweden and Japan. And the vision of the program is a world where sustainable lifestyles is desirable, accessible, and beneficial, and that sustainable lifestyles is the common norm.
And is that the thing in all over the world? Is it in developed and developing countries? How are these two sides or two point of views to this question? What Kitty already said, it's quite easy to say to us hey, try a little bit. But for someone who is really lacking the resources, how this question is dealt?
Well, the sustainable lifestyles looks different in different parts of the world. So that's why what we also are working on is to make the scenarios. What is sustainable lifestyles in different parts of the world? And the other part is to find the tools, the policies in different parts of the world that can help to change unsustainable consumption and lifestyles into sustainable ones.
What would be the most important thing you're doing in your program?
Well, we are actually focusing on this to find the tools, to develop the right policies, to find the incentives in order to change into sustainable lifestyles. The second part is education, to empower people, individuals, to actually change into sustainable lifestyles. And the third part is these scenarios, to show what is sustainable lifestyles in different parts of the world, and also to follow up and on the progress.
And create a vision, that's always needed as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we are happy to now to announce that we have at least 15 projects going on in different parts of the world. And they are on textiles, on waste, food waste, and also on how music can help changing lifestyles.
And that's important also. We need these cultural tools to encourage us a little bit. We always talk about like economical incentives and all of that, but that part is very important as well. But then we need to jump further on public procurement side. If Gunilla speaks about our behavior and lifestyle change, then Mark is the one to create structures together with public entities. So what is it about?
Yeah, well, not just me alone, of course. We're collaborative. I mean, with public procurement, the first thing to say is, of course, it's got huge potential, and that's what's been recognised for this demand-side policy. I mean, just take Europe itself alone. I think it's around 14% of the GDP, gross domestic product, is spent by public authorities. That's the equivalent to about 1.8 trillion euros per year, which is a huge amount of money. So what we're trying to do is influence what public authorities are buying. So typically at the moment, what public authorities are doing is that they're buying a product, using a product, and then disposing of a product. And you can say some of them are doing it sustainably. They're buying a printer, photocopier, and it's energy efficient. So you could say, well, ticking a box, we're sustainable. But of course, it's much more than that. And procurement can also do much more than that. It can influence how raw materials are being extracted. Is it being done by child or slave labour? How is the product being actually put together? How is it being transported to the public authority? We've got the use phase, of course, but then a huge area of disposal phase. You don't just throw it away. You need to remanufacture it, reuse it, reprocess it. So it's a huge potential. So as part of the programme that we're working on, we're going into more the circular procurement and taking it through the whole phase of that.
Yeah, and as we are here in Nordic countries, and this question is even more important for us because the public sector plays quite a big role in here. Yeah. So this is important part. These are the two kind of point of views, one from consumption and the other one from public procurement. And then, of course, the interesting question is what happens on the industry fields. And one of the biggest of them deals with buildings. And from Ministry of Environment here in Finland, which is, by the way, the co-organizer of this event, Harri Hakaste is the one who leads the program. And before we give the floor for Harri, we take a little bit look at a nice small video.
This video presents the themes of resource efficiency and circular economy in the construction sector, which is the #1 consumer of global raw materials. The use of buildings account for 40% of global energy, 25% of global water, 40% of global resources, and approximately 1/3 of all greenhouse gas emissions. Between 1900 and 2005, the global use of material resources increased by a factor of 8, almost twice as fast as the rate by which the global population grew, while the use of construction materials increased by a factor of 34. We have tremendous opportunities to better the efficiency of our use of resources. 10 to 15% of building materials are wasted during construction. 60% of European offices are not used even in working hours. 50% of residential dwellers report living in too much space. 20 to 40% of the energy used in existing buildings could profitably be conserved. 54% of demolition materials are sent to landfill, while in some countries landfill is only 6%. And 40% of all extracted materials are stored in the building environment, which provides an enormous reservoir for reuse and recycling. EU manufacturing could realize net cost savings of up to $630 billion annually in raw materials by deploying a circular economy approach, and approaching circular economy principles could significantly enhance the productivity of the global construction industry, saving at least $100 billion a year. The Sustainable Development Goals of the SBC program are to achieve a healthy building environment, provide capacity building to different stakeholders, increase water use efficiency, ensure access to affordable, reliable and modern energy services, improve resource efficiency, promote sustainable industrialization and foster innovation, support job creation to all genders and the youth, enhance the planning and management of sustainable human settlements, encourage companies to adopt sustainable practices, strengthen resilience and adaptive capacity, restore degraded land and ensure sustainable use of ecosystems, and finally, build on initiatives for knowledge sharing and cooperation. Our vision is a local circular economy to analyze global material flows to inform local networks and design buildings for material recovery, lower the cost of waste separation, replace energy-intensive materials and save raw materials, protect the informal sector and encourage the use of organic building materials, invest in local circular economies and divert materials from landfill, and raise the value of reuse materials and improve the prospects for the informal markets. A good example of using
quite amazing opportunities. Was it that the use of construction materials has increased 34 times, a factor of 34? Quite amazing thing. So, Harri, you have quite big industry to play with. What are you doing in practical level in the program you are running?
Of course, we have as the same other programs. We are also having implementation projects. We're going to try to go to as a grassroots level as possible, and we are trying to find the most impactful issues that we can address in our program.
And what are those most important or most impactful areas?
As we all know, that the climate issues are the number one issue in all sustainable building at the moment. But this circular economy is now one of the issues that we are also addressing. We noticed that making this video that we have lots of lack of information, so it's kind of challenging to start with these issues. We don't know where we are at the moment. And we are now discussing of having some kind of information base made in our program. It's one of the issues that we are now discussing. But of course the climate is the first one that we are talking about.
And if I was a real estate CEO in the audience and I would like to do something, should I come to you or what is the way to be part of it?
Actually, I'm just a substitute of our program. Our main coordinator, Pekka Huovila, is now in Hong Kong, where it's the biggest sustainable building conference at the moment going on. So it's we are unhappy to have these two big conferences at the same time.
But we are happy to have you here. So yes, go to Harri if you are interested in these topics. But Harri talked about information and sharing of information, and that's something Ulf also works with. Ulf, Jaeckel runs the program of consumer information. What does that then mean if you take a look at what Gunilla is working with the consumption side and the other programs are doing? Ulf, please.
Yeah, consumer information is important because consumption is the source of 70 to 80% of all greenhouse gases. So you have to change consumption to reach your environmental goals, which are set and which are taken seriously still. And therefore, the consumer information program addresses these kind of issues, addresses not only the government, but addresses the stakeholders, the consumers, of course, but also retailers and the industry. And it's quite logic that they are on board. How to get them on board is not that easy. You have to provide at least interesting work. For example, in the consumer information program, we are developing and we are in a process of negotiating, or were in the process of negotiating UN guidelines for reliable consumer information. So it's addressing target 12.8 in the in the SDGs, providing consumer information by 2030. We are quite early, but still it's a big task to set criteria what is reliable consumer information, and to stop greenwashing, and to find companies and associations accepting these guidelines and working with these guidelines. So that's pretty important for this program. We are also working on social aspects. We are also working on supporting or promoting the role of reliable eco-labeling schemes, type 1. If you see the ISO standards, type 1, that they cooperate and they reach a bigger market share for their products and their criteria.
Yeah, we know actually that eco-labeling has played quite a big role, for example, with refrigerators in European area, for example. How about consumer information? We know that the big software companies are kind of collecting quite a lot of information from us. And if we would take a look at who used Airbnb or Uber during last week, how many of you have been doing something like that? Yeah. And then if we asked who used Google, then it would be all of us who did that. So they are really collecting a lot of data from us. Can that kind of data be used, or does it have to do something with your program?
It's pretty difficult. Microsoft is one of our board members, but still it's difficult to use that kind of data. It's even difficult to find some information if you are using search machines, for example, when you want to buy something online, it's more or less not there. And we want to provide or find ways how we can spread the information, how we can provide the information. Even with smaller devices like a smartphone, there's not too much space. If you look at the smartphone and you want to do your shopping there, it's not that much space for additional information like sustainability information, and quite often it's not there yet. So we are working on that. That's pretty difficult, but we are working with search machines and others to ensure that.
And that's a clear message to those boardrooms that Kitty just took up. And it's also a clear message for all of us when we are saying to whom we want to share our information and the data that is collected. We should be saying, like, for sustainability purposes, yes, please use it. For other purposes, then it might be a question mark. So very interesting topics. Then we move further on very much on consumption side. What we all do, I know most of quite many of our international guests have spent weekend here in Helsinki, or at least part of the Sunday. So you have that kind of perspective, a little bit perspective of tourism to Helsinki. And about tourism, we will talk after having a little look at the video. So there we are together, and tourism is something that brings us together. Gabriele Kull is the one to run or be part of the tourism program. She's a journalist and also takes that kind of point of view to this question. Can you share some of the example of the implementation projects you have been doing under the program of tourism?
Yes, of course. But first, I want to tell you something about tourism. Tourism is a big sector. It accounts for 10% of the global GDP, and 1 in every 10 jobs is in tourism worldwide. And it's a very fast-growing sector. And 2016, for instance, 1.2 billion people traveled the world, and prospects for 2030 are 1.8 billion. So this sector is growing, which is good. People are traveling, people are getting to know other cultures. But how can we decouple this growth from using the resources and abusing the resources? And we know also travel has to do with airline industry, and it's one of the most unsustainable sectors in the world. And it's really a big thing how to make tourism more efficient and more sustainable. And we have several models for that, which we are implementing also. And I can tell you a little bit about the impact tourism can have on circular economy, because tourism has a lot of very, very impactful sides. For instance, tourism can be educational. It started long ago that hotels put the sign on the walls and said, take care, not use the towels every day, a new towel, or maybe we could change your bed sheets every 2 days, and they put up recycling bins, etc. So they are educating their consumers. This is a big chance. So we have here a big potential of being a role model. The thing is also that it's a direct business-to-consumer contact we have. Consumers, they have direct contact to the people who provide their holiday experience. So we can directly influence customer behavior also. We have in the consumption, in the consumer, on the consumer side, for instance, just not provide so many amenities, how to package the amenities. Why not give them open soaps and dispensers, etc. And the thing is also, you saw in this video, the 10YFP program doesn't talk about tourism as an industry. They talk about travel, about experience, about adventure. So the thing is, we have to change consumption from material consumption, like just consuming things we want to see, we want to take a picture, towards more immaterial consumption. So tourism is also a good way to promote this, to make experiences, to experience new lifestyles, to experience new cultures and countries. And the last thing is tourism can be very, very local. Because if you have a bed and breakfast or a resort, why do you have to import goods from overseas to give it to the tourists? You can just provide the local foods, local trips, local cultural, things that you provide to the tourists. So this is a great potential we have, and we have to change it from the material consumption to the immaterial.
And on practical level, how to engage into your program, or as a case example, what have you been doing under this program?
Well, I'm representing future.camp. This is a company and a non-profit company, actually, promoting sustainable lifestyles. We are doing workshops in Zurich right now, but we also have many tourist programs. We have, for instance, a hotel project in Greece, which is being built right now. And we kind of implement circular economic models from the beginning of planning, of construction, and implementation. So we try to really, before we set up this resort, we think about how to use less materials, how to use only circular materials. And it's a huge challenge. It took us a lot of time. We work with universities, and we're still not there yet. But I can tell you about good examples in tourism.
And we will go on with those examples on the table discussions after. But if you happen to have an idea, or if you are the one who runs something dealing with tourism, be in touch with Gabriele. And then we have the last area, not the smallest one, I would say, neither. It's the food and agriculture. And Martine Rohn is the one to be representing that. She comes from Swiss Federal Office for the Environment, presenting Sustainable Food System Program. If you take a look at, after all of these important things, one point of view to food and agriculture, how is that program working?
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting also Switzerland. Switzerland is co-leading this program with South Africa and also with WWF and IROS. Switzerland is very committed to green economy at the national level, but also at the international level, because more than 70% of our footprint is abroad. So we are committed to the 10YFP program from the beginning, designing also this 10YFP program. Now, with the food system, the presentation made by Kitty was a very good introduction to the subject food system, sustainable food system. On the one hand, food system contribute to environmental challenges with land degradation, deforestation, water pollution. But food system is also affected by environmental challenges, climate change, water scarcity. So the link is very strong. We heard more than 800 million people go hungry. More than 2 billion people are still malnourished. And at the same time, 30% is what you presented, Kitty, more than 30% of food is lost or wasted all over the world. And we also know that the planet has to have the capacity and should have the capacity to provide food and good food to everybody. But how to do that? And we need, we saw that, we discussed it also, we need to bring our consumption and production patterns to operate within planetary boundaries. It's a must. And it is a holistic approach which has been taken by this program of the 10YFP, looking through all the value chain and all the sector involved in the food system, agriculture, but also tourism and information to the public. And what do we do concretely? Because it is a nice word. So we had 8 initiatives, core initiative, and I will just to speak about 2 of them. One is conducted by Nestlé, UNEP, WWF, FAO, and it is to develop the methodology, harmonized methodology to define and to count what is food waste and how could we implement the SDGs with this methodology. And the second program is a multi-stakeholder roundtable to have all on the same table to develop policies, but also good practices, and to have this exchange. And last but not least, what is the added value for you to join this program? The added value is to be part of the solution, to be a small partner, but to be on board, to have this dialogue possibility, and to implement concrete action on the ground. So welcome to our program.
That's it. And this is how you can engage to these programs. And now I ask each of you in 10 seconds, take Kitty's challenge And from your own life, tell something in your own field. What is something you are already doing, or something that is a little bit nicely good in your own field? And then after we go to these roundtable discussions. But while you are thinking a little bit, just to remind you that these 10 years framework programs are working all over the world. So it's countries from south and from north. It's companies and academics. It's NGOs from south and north who can be part of these programs. And they have been working for 4.5 years now, and they have others and a little bit more to go on. So if you have an idea how to be part of it, how to become part of this movement, please be really in touch and engage during this discussion. And now we take a fast round of some examples from your own life. And if we take it vice versa, so if Martine would start.
So food waste, before I'm going shopping, I open the fridge and I look, what do I still have in my fridge?
Very good tip. Many of us don't do that. Gabriele.
Consuming less. I haven't consumed a lot last year, and I'm going zero waste in my personal life, and we're doing these projects for hotels also. Yeah.
Zero waste goal in personal life. Not bad, I would say. Ulf.
I use a smartphone, a Blue Angel labeled smartphone, because I want the design of smartphones to be changed.
Cool. Harri.
I live in a 150 years old building that I've been renovating now 50 years. And I haven't demolished anything that is not necessary.
So you don't need more materials as you have that. Great. Mark?
It's quite simple for me. With sustainable public procurement, the best thing to do is actually not to buy at all, so buy less.
So you are doing the same then with Gabriele. And Gunilla?
Yes, I try to reuse things and repair.
Repair and reuse. Practical notes, 6 of them, and I'm quite sure 0 of us does all of those, so there is something good for all of us. Let's give a warm hand applause for all of the panelists.